Hey everybody, Dr. Rick here dropping in on you. Hope everybody is off to a great start. Look, you know me. What I always say is you're not going to always be where you want to be. So if you're not where you think you should be this week, or you should be at this point in this new year, remember, if you're still breathing, you're still in the fight. You know, some of the things that I often encounter are people who are obviously frustrated with where they are. They're frustrated with not having achieved things that they once dreamed of doing, or they're frustrated with having put in some effort but not having gotten out of that effort what they believed, and they're sitting there and they begin to become consumed with their frustration, consumed with their anger, consumed with the idea and the image of the fact that they aren't where they're supposed to be. Remember, I always say whatever you focus on is what you're going to feel the most. What does that absolutely or actually mean, Doc? It means that your mind is a powerful creator. As a man thinketh, so is he. What you are literally doing is living out the thoughts you had. Your reality now is the consummation of thoughts you had last week, last month, last year, 5 years ago. And they are simply producing a behavior, a sense of trust and beliefs in a type of performance. In other words, a bunch of you are corralled by limiting beliefs, so your behavior is reflective of those limiting beliefs. Your thoughts are literally playing out what you can't do more than what you can do. When you focus on something, it creates a chemical reaction in your mind. So when I sit up and I focus on something that makes me upset, that makes me frustrated, that is a negative thing, then I create a chemical reaction that produces an emotional response that literally labels and tags that event. And the more I do that, the more addicted I become to that feeling. Even though I say I don't want it, I don't like it, I am literally teaching myself how to be unhappy, how to be. Then I start to seek things that produce that type of feeling. Now, I'll say I don't like it because it doesn't feel good in one way, but it's what my body is demanding because it's what my body is used to. And that's the thing. You've got to change your thinking. You've got to change your approach. You've got to create a new way of seeing things. You ever wonder why people who go through the exact same situation, come from the exact same background, can end up with such distinctively different outcomes? It's because of how they view things. Somebody is looking at it, and there's a poem I use in the beginning of my book, Critical Mass. It says, two people stared out of a prison through jails, through bars. One saw mud, the other saw stars. And it comes from a poem, but it's the mindset. It's one of the simplest depictions of what happens when you lose yourself in the darkness of any particular moment, and you allow that moment to start defining who you are. You start to give yourself to that darkness. You start to give yourself to that disappointment. You start to give yourself to that frustration, and before you know it, you're literally reliving it and not understanding why. This is how trauma plays out. This is how depression plays out. This is how people will live a vast majority of their lives frustrated with outcomes that they have the ability to change, but they don't know how. And what I do with my clients is I simply walk them through a process where we refocus, recenter, we change habitual thinking. As we change our self-talk. What am I saying about myself that is reflective of these limiting beliefs that I'm holding? If I'm saying this, if I'm constantly saying, well, that's outside of my reach, if I'm constantly saying I can't do that, who was it? Confucius said that he who thinks he can and he who thinks he can is usually both right. And then Henry Ford followed up and repeated the same thing. It is simply that what I believe about myself becomes my truth. God will never meet you at a level above your expectations. Whatever you expect out of life is what you're going to get out of life, because it's going to create your habitual thinking, your habitual behavior, your habitual interpretation of situations. Remember, your situation is a perceptive thing. It's how I perceive it. I perceive my setbacks as challenges. Other people perceive their setbacks as failure. And that's going to, over time, play out in the overall outcome. I don't see any setback as being the defining moment in my life. I see it as the next challenge to rise to the occasion. If I failed at it, I wasn't good enough. If I failed at it, I didn't know enough. If I failed at it, I wasn't connected with the right people. If I failed at it, it means I need to reevaluate it. What it does not mean is I can't have it. It never means I can't have it. It simply means I need to do something different to get it. And that's the thing. So there's never been a plan B for me. Everybody talks about, when the moment you create a plan B, get prepared to use it. I tell people this all the time. The moment you create a plan B, get prepared. It doesn't mean that you won't have variations in your schemes and in your planning in the sense of what you go. When I say plan A, plan B, I mean the thing I want. If I say I want to start a new business, there's no plan B that says, well, after a certain amount of time, I'm just going to go out here and do this. Now, plan A may demand that in a short period of time, I get a job, but the ultimate goal is still the same, to start the business. It means that I had to reevaluate. The goal is always going to be what it is. I'm never going to have a plan B. Why? Because the moment that I come up with a plan B, which is just simply saying I want something that's less challenging, something that's going to take less time, something that is not going to push me to the very brink of my excellence, then that's what I'm going to go for, because it's easier. No, I don't want what's easy. I want what's going to drive me to be the best I could possibly be. That's what I do with my clients. I'm going to get the best out of my clients. I'm going to demand them to go to a place that they're uncomfortable going. I'm going to challenge them to think about things that they once thought impossible, and they think if they mention it to anyone, they're going to think they're crazy. I have never looked at a person that told me they were going to do something, I don't care how far or how outlandish they thought it was, and looked at them and said, "You're out of your mind. You can't do that. Let's be more realistic." Matter of fact, the ongoing joke amongst my longtime friends is, if you want, for new people who come around and they're all joking and say, "Well, hey, look, check this out. The one thing I'm going to tell you right now, if you want to hang around and stick around here, don't ever say be realistic." And it's a joke, but it's real. I cannot stand that term, be realistic. Be realistic says I have these limiting beliefs that I hold about what can happen in life, what's possible in life. And not only do I hold these beliefs, I'm going to impose them upon you. That's what be realistic means. It means I don't believe it can happen, so I'm expecting you to act the same way. I'm expecting you to move the same way. You're moving for something I don't believe is possible makes me uncomfortable. And the problem is with a bunch of you is you got a bunch of people like that in your circle that will sit up and they'll do it under the guise of, I'm just concerned about you. I just am worried about you hurting yourself, I'm worried about you being disappointed. But the truth of the matter is you're making me uncomfortable with what you're talking about. And the last freaking thing that someone that isn't really prepared or committed to reaching for the stars wants is for somebody that's in the same space they're in to reach and actually touch that dream, because now it challenges them and it convicts them of their mediocrity. It sits up and tells them all these excuses that they've been making their entire life isn't really what it's about. It is absolutely imperative that you learn how to touch your own dream. And in order to do that, you got to believe that it's possible. You got to look at yourself and you got to get rid of those limiting beliefs that you've been packing around probably all of your adult life and say, you know what? There's something inside of me that is literally designed for this very challenge. God placed a gift inside of me to do something exceptional, to do something extraordinary, to achieve the phenomenal. And I refuse to sit around and wallow in what someone else, the constraints and the parameters and the limits someone else gave me. So I'm going to stand up today and I'm going to walk out there. I'm going to do things. I am challenging you today to sit up and reevaluate where you're at. I'm challenging you today to reevaluate your health, your fitness, your finances, where you are in your career, your relationships, how you're moving in life, because I promise you, no matter where you're at, there's something better for you, something more beautiful for you, something more extravagant for you, something that is remarkable and exceptional. But you're going to have to stand up. You're going to have to move out there. You're going to have to go. For those of you who are looking for someone to help you get there, if you want to work with me, look in the description box. There's going to be a link that you can check out how you can work with me directly. For those of you who may not be prepared or ready to do that, there's going to be a link that you can check out where you can actually take the course that I created to help people get past these limiting beliefs, The Mind Unleashed. I promise you that with guided instruction, there is absolutely nothing that you can't achieve. There is no distance you can't go, but you're going to have to be committed. My challenge to you is to stand up, step out. On that note, I'm out of here. You guys have an unbelievable remainder of your day. I hope to be